The most asked question is, where were the other three NASA co-principals? The answer is, we were neither aware, briefed, consulted, nor invited. This leads to the second question. Was the meeting a culmination of the dialogue NASA has been agitating for? The answer is no. There may be a semblance of issues dear to NASA that relate to electoral justice and governance, but that is all. NASA advocates for an all-inclusive national dialogue on the well-being of all Kenyans and not a deal between two people. For the record, and on the basis of the statement released, I can therefore categorically state that the meeting was between two individuals. It does not bear the imprint of NASA summit as it ought to be. It was not processed through the NASA structures. Indeed, nowhere does the MOU allude to or mention NASA, including the signing off. Instead, the two repeatedly invoke their names and personally commit to each other and not to all Kenyans. So why are Kenyans who have been calling for dialogue baffled? They are because the MOU is not anchored nor underwritten by any known institutional framework. Neither does it succinctly capture the nagging issues contained in NASA National Dialogue Agenda, for which many have died and others maimed in the recent past. It is not possible to gloss over issues of electoral justice by simply accepting to move on the basis of a gentleman's agreement. Incidentally, one hopes this wasn't a PR prank to hoodwink Kenyans in anticipation of the visit by the U.S. Secretary of State, Mr. Rex Tillerson. Time and again, NASA has called for a structured national dialogue. Therefore, NASA is not opposed to dialogue. I repeat, therefore, NASA is not opposed to dialogue. However, an MOU between two people does not constitute an all-inclusive national dialogue. NASA asked for dialogue over the IBC capacity, competence, and accountability deficits after the Supreme Court nullified the August 8th presidential elections on irregularities and illegalities. Thereafter, NASA has been on the road calling upon Jubilee for a sit-down to address issues affecting Kenyans under the compass of electoral justice. Indeed, as of Monday this week, the NASA summit issued a statement recommitting to dialogue. Unfortunately, that dialogue cannot and should not be between two individuals. We, the NASA family, remain committed to changing Kenya for the better. Jubilee has remained stubborn and intransigent, and their repeated salvos have been an invitation of NASA into a dialogue of development. We find such invitation cynical, insulting, and underwritten by the impetus to accept injustice and move on. As long as Jubilee remains adamant on the Come We Talk development trajectory reflected in the statement, NASA will not play ball. Our pillars for reform include the following. 1, electoral reform. independence of the judiciary and other independent institutions, security sector reforms, governance and the rule of law, and strengthening of devolution. Meanwhile, as we grapple with this, Kenyans should not lose sight of the fact that we now have an emerging crisis caused by a crippling national public debt of unimaginable proportions. In conclusion, there has been apprehension that NASA is on the verge of folding up. Nothing can be further from the truth. This is because NASA is not about an individual or even the summit. NASA is an idea owned by Kenyans which will survive and outlive any one individual. In the aftermath of the MOU, the NASA summit will do a thorough audit of the MOU and undertake soul searching on whether Kenyans were taken for a ride or not by this MOU. Meanwhile, the struggle for reforms rolls on full steam. I therefore appeal to all Kenyans to stand steadfast in defense of NASA ideals and an all-inclusive national dialogue. Thank you.